Okay, so we've loaded data, which was this property detail sheet, which was very proper, everything properly laid out. But if you see the next tab, property details 2, you'll see that it doesn't start from row number 1, and it has some dummy data on the top rows, top 4 rows. So if you go back to property details and see, there were around 125 records. Here as well, you've got 125 records, but if you include all these things, the records will increase. But however, we don't want this to be loaded. Now let's see how that works out in Power BI. So I open the Power BI, a new report. I click on import data from Excel. But before that, let me close the file. So Control S, W, and I try to load it again. So import data, plot Hyderabad is a file name, and this time I want to load property details. So last time, if you remember, we just hit this and hit load. So we do the same thing. So we're gonna load the entire data and see how it looks. Okay, it's gonna load, and that is how it has loaded. So if you see, you don't have those fields that we used in the last video. But if you go back and see the data, you will see that the data also doesn't make any sense because it does not have any headers. It has some empty rows and all this stuff. So clearly this is not how we want the data to be in the data model. So I'm gonna delete it from the model, and we're gonna load it again. So I do the same thing. I select the file, I'll select the sheet, property details 2. Right, and this time, instead of hitting load, I'm gonna hit on transform data, and this is where you can change a lot of stuff before loading. Now this opens up a Power Query editor. So this is the data that you have in front, and these are the steps that gets applied when you load the data. So you have the source, you have the navigation, promoted headers, and all these things. Let's see that now. So clearly this is not what we want. What we want is the first 3 rows to be removed. So we have an option here in the home tab called remove rows. So I'm gonna click this and say remove top rows. And when I do that, it's gonna ask how many rows you want to remove. I'd say 3. And when I click OK, those rows will be removed, and if you see, there is a new step that's been added, removed top rows. If you want to later change it to something else, you can change the step by clicking on the settings icon, and you can change the number of rows you want. I'm fine with this, but still this data is using the headers, the other from the generic column, from the generic row, not the ones that I want. So what I want to do is I want to click on use first row as headers. There you go. So now what it has done is it has made all the headers proper. So it's using the headers that I want. And every column, if you see, has a proper data type. So if I click on property ID, you see that it's a data type of whole number. If I click publish date, it's a date format. Asking price, it's a whole number, and so on. And these are text, right? So this is good. And once I'm done with this, I click on close and apply. Now the data gets added to the data model, and you have the exact same thing that we had earlier. So all the fields are in there. If you want to look at the data, it's properly in there. And now you can begin making your report.